And he is right there at the top of the list of the most inevitable winners, the impossible to defeat champions.
Yeah.
The guy has been the best player in the league since the first game he played.
There's very few individuals that I feel that just can always have that switch turned on.
And that's what Michael Jordan was, and that's what Mahomes has become.
Right. And then, if needed, can turn it up a notch.
He's never had a down year. He's never had a down season.
He's won 3 Super Bowls, by the way, Patrick Mahomes, before the age of 30.
There was Babe Ruth and Gehrig, Jordan and Pippen, and Mahomes and Kelce.
But when he gets into playoffs, something happens.
I never thought I'd see anything better than Gronk.
You know, in the playoffs alone, this man has 172 catches. That's more than anybody in NFL history.
Well, to break it, they're going to have to stop Travis Kelce. That'll be a big challenge for him. I tried to do that for the better part of a decade. It's not easy.
Kansas City is the Patriots.
If you were to simply look at the Chiefs' offense through the stat sheet, you wouldn't come away all that impressed. For a team with the greatest quarterback this side of Tom Brady, they're 15th in points per game and 16th in yards per game. Long gone are the days of Patrick Mahomes putting up 5,000-yard seasons with Tyreek Hill being a threat to take it to the house anytime he touched the ball. This season, Mahomes has thrown for under 4,000 yards, he holds the 27th lowest yards per attempt of 44 qualifying quarterbacks, and the Chiefs' offense is 28th in percentage of pass plays that have gone for over 20 yards. And still, this might be Patrick Mahomes' best season to date. If the Chiefs with Tyreek were the Golden State Warriors of the NFL, this 2024 Kansas City offense is closer to the Tim Duncan era San Antonio Spurs. They're not flashy, but they're efficient. They're not going to put up points in bunches, but they methodically distribute the ball and don't turn it over. Despite ranking 28th in explosive pass rate, they're second and third down efficiency and are tied for 4th in turnovers. They're first in plays per drive and 10th in points per drive. As a result, they don't put their defense in bad field positions very often. What's been impressive about Patrick Mahomes and this version of the Chiefs offense is that he's getting it done without pushing the ball down the field much. His average depth of throw of 6.9 yards is 42nd in the NFL. On passes thrown under 2.5 seconds, he's first in completion percentage, second in EPA per dropback, and 6th in passer rating. He gets the ball out of his hands quickly and effectively, and it's helped cover for an offensive line that has had struggles. He's doing this with his top weapon, a 35-year-old Hall of Fame tight end having the worst year of his career in terms of yards, touchdowns, yards per reception, yards after the catch per reception, and missed tackles forced. But the thing is, if you can get Mahomes off his first read and force him to hold on to the ball, he's not been nearly as good. On passes over 2.5 seconds, he's 29th in completion percentage, 20th in EPA per dropback, and 31st in passer rating. So the key for Vic Fangio and this defense is to get Mahomes off his first read and don't give the Chiefs easy throws. But how can they do that? Well, to build a game plan to slow down the Chiefs' offense, you first have to figure out what they're trying to do. The Chiefs' offense is centered around a lot of quick game, including RPOs. They lead the NFL in total RPO passes and are second in percentage of passes that are from RPOs. They have 2 primary ways of running RPOs. When running RPOs from 3x1 formations, they're mainly using bubble RPOs. When running RPOs from 2x2 formations, they have a clear game plan. We'll dive deeper into these plays. Almost every time, they have a player occupy the flat with another player occupying the hook curl zone. How they get players into the flat can vary from bubble routes to simple flat routes. They might motion a player into the flat, or they may get there from a static formation. The players that occupy the hook curl area usually get there on hitch routes or slant routes. The Chiefs will interchange which players run these routes as well. Knowing the areas the Chiefs want to attack with their 2x2 RPO game on early downs, the Eagles can game plan this by having defenders leverage the flat routes and the hitch and slant routes with their coverage. And the Chiefs and Dolphins matchup from 2023, we see the Chiefs run one of their staple plays that they're still running this year. They motion from a 3x1 condensed bunch set to a 2x2 stack look and run a stick flat RPO. The Dolphins are running quarters from a 5-down front and blitz a linebacker up the A-gap opposite of the running back. This allows both edge defenders to drop into the flat. Notice how the flat defender is able to drop into the window for the stick route and the outside corner is able to widen with the flat route. If this wasn't an RPO and the receiver running the stick route instead runs up the field, the safety would match him on anything vertical. The Chiefs hand the ball off on this play, and we'll come back to look at the run aspect of this play later on. We see a similar principle at play when the Packers ran a similar action in the wild card round. The Eagles are running quarters to the twin wide receiver side, and we see Jalix Hunt drop into the throwing window again, although they're not blitzing this time. The Eagles can change up how they leverage the routes by running different coverages. Here we see the defense running cover 2 to the condensed side. The flat defender is already waiting on the flat route with outside leverage, while the curl defender sits in the throwing window for the stick route. Changing up the look and which defenders dropping into throwing windows will be critical when facing Mahomes. You can't sit in one coverage all game and expect to stop this offense. Let's look at the Chiefs' run game real quick. Here we see the Chiefs running inside zone from shotgun with the running back aligned and gun far, opposite of the tight end. The Bills are in an over front with the defensive tackle to the run strength aligned in the B gap with the other defensive tackle aligned in the weak A gap. When the Chiefs run inside zone against this front, they're going to use the center to shove the weak side defensive tackle back into the guard before climbing up to the linebacker. This helps open up a hole for the running back, but it also creates an area for the defense to attack. Let's go back to that RPO play from the Chiefs and Dolphins that we looked at. While the Dolphins aren't in an over front, they still have a defensive tackle in the weak A gap and strong B gap. Instead of letting the center shove the defensive tackle back into the guard, Fangio blitzes a linebacker in the strong side A gap. This pulls the double team off right away, cuts off the front side, and forces the run back into the teeth of the defense. Fangio paired a creeper pressure by sending the linebacker on a blitz while dropping the edge defenders into coverage to cut off the run and take away the Chiefs' options on one of their favorite RPOs. That's a suffocating defense. One last thing I'll add about the Chiefs' RPOs before we move on. The majority of the passes from RPOs are thrown on the same side as the running back. They will throw RPOs opposite of the running back on occasion, which is referred to as a flop RPO, but that's almost always a bubble RPO based on a pre-snap read that Mahomes has deciphered pre-snap, and it's usually to Xavier Worthy. That distinction is important though, because it helps tip where the ball is going to go. I would expect Fangio to try to take advantage of that tendency by calling creepers to blitz opposite of the running back so that he can drop non-traditional defenders into throwing windows on early downs. But the Chiefs will try to counter by hopping the back at the last second to the opposite side to change the RPO side that they want to attack. But that's a chess match between Fangio and Reed. Fangio doesn't need to be right every time, just enough to get the Chiefs behind the sticks. In 2023, Pro Football Reference charted the Chiefs with 92 total RPO plays, throwing on 61% of those RPOs. The Chiefs threw the ball on 3 of their 12 RPOs against the Dolphins in their Week 9 matchup. The Chiefs are throwing on 72% of their RPOs this season, not including the playoffs. The Eagles' defense can live with forcing Mahomes to hand off on RPOs. When we look at the Chiefs' overall quick game, much like their RPOs, they try to attack very similar areas of the field. They often have players occupy the flat, hook curl area, and low hole. Fangio will need to find different ways to rotate defenders to occupy these areas and keep Mahomes guessing. This will be especially true on second down. The Chiefs' average depth of target on second down is comically low at 3.9 yards per attempt, which is last in the NFL. Now, if you're going to slow down any offense, you have to look at who they try to get the ball to and how they try to get them the ball. It might shock you to know that Travis Kelce leads the Chiefs in targets, receptions, and yards. Mahomes and Kelce have an elite connection. They see the same things on the field and take advantage of defensive rotations and leverage. So what are some ways that Fangio can make life harder on Kelce? Again, let's look at how Kelce is used. Whenever you have 145 targets in a season, you're getting the ball in a variety of different ways. Some of the catches happen on the quick passes and RPOs like we looked at earlier, and some are on screens and bubbles. But in trips formations, when they align Kelce as a number 3 receiver in the slot, we often see him used on stick routes and other quick passes when the defense gives them room. So how can the Eagles take that away? Outside of man coverage, there's 3 main play calls I would use against the Chiefs when they align in trips formations. The first 2 coverages I would use would be Fangio's whip creeper pressure. This is a single high cover 3 defense played with match fire zone blitz rules. Essentially what's going to happen is the outside corners are going to match the number 1 receivers on anything vertical. If they run something like a drag route, they'll zone off their coverage and play the deep third. It often plays out like man coverage. The nickel is a seam flat defender and is going to match the number 2 receiver on anything out or vertical and zone off his coverage into the flat if that receiver goes inside and underneath right away. The linebacker away from the trip side will blitz and the safety to the trip side will rotate to the middle post. Here's where the magic happens. In fire zone blitz coverages, when you're rushing 5 defenders and playing zone coverage with 6 behind them, typically there is a weak spot in the coverage. With the nickel not able to play the flat, if the number 2 receiver runs vertically, the non-blitzing linebacker has to play the 3 receiver hook or 3-rec hook for short. He would need to match the number 3 receiver if he ran to the flat right away, but he would be severely out-leveraged and it would be extremely difficult for him to take away any quick passes to the flat. So to alleviate that stress, Fangio will drop the edge defender away from the blitzing linebacker into coverage as a bonus hook defender. He'll play with outside leverage on the number 3 receiver and match him if he runs to the flat, and now the 3-rec hook defender isn't responsible for getting out to the flat and he can cover the middle of the field. What happens is you often get a pseudo bracket on the number 3 receiver with the edge defender dropping to the outside leverage of the number 3 receiver and the linebacker playing inside leverage on him. Those stick routes from Kelce would end up double covered. There's also a bonus to this pressure from the defense. If the defense catches the offense sliding the offensive line to the trip side, the running back is often forced to stay in to block the blitzing linebacker, or else the defense will get an unblocked rusher to the quarterback. The safety away from the trip side is rotating down as a seam flat defender on the weak side of the formation and would be responsible for covering the running back out of the backfield. But if the back has to stay in to block, the safety is now free to help bracket the number 1 receiver on the backside or look for anything breaking across the middle on the trip side. The second coverage I would use would be cover 3, but using Fangio's key adjustment to trips. Let's break this down again. The corners, nickel, and strong side safety will have the same rules as when running whip, so we again have the same issues of being vulnerable to the flat by the number 3 receiver. But by using the key adjustment, the linebacker to the trip side is now going to play the bonus hook role like we saw from the edge defender and whip. The safety away from the trip side is now going to play the 3-rec hook, and we again are able to get a pseudo bracket on the number 3 receiver and trips. The linebacker away from the trips formation will match the running back out of the backfield. Based on game plan, you can also have that bonus hook defender match routes in different ways. Here against the Cowboys, we see the offense in trips, but align the number 2 and number 3 receivers in a condensed stack alignment. The bonus hook defender matches the drag route underneath, and the safety playing the 3-rec hook can take away the crossing route with inside leverage, while the seam flat defender plays with outside leverage. We now see that Fangio has created layers with defenders occupying the underneath area, defenders occupying the intermediate area, and a post safety occupying the deep middle. This next route concept from the Chiefs is one of their favorites out of 3-by-1 looks. The number 3 receiver is going to run a short whip route, with the number 2 receiver running a basic route over the middle to create a high-low and horizontal stretch on the defense. Using the key adjustment and trips, the bonus hook defender can sit on the whip route with outside leverage, knowing he has inside help from the 3-rec hook defender, and the 3-rec hook defender would then be sitting with inside leverage to help take away the basic route. Both of those plays were cover 3 checks to trips. The last zone coverage look I would use against trips formations would be quarters, with the Eagles using their tricks adjustment to trips. In tricks, the corner on the solo receiver side will man up the number 1 receiver. On the trip side, the corner will match the number 1 receiver if he runs vertical or zone off his coverage if he runs underneath. The safety to the trip side will do the same with the number 2 receiver, and the safety away from the trip side will match the number 3 receiver on anything vertical as well. The coverage can vary based on the routes of the receivers, but that's the basics of this coverage. The linebacker to the trip side playing the quarter hook will match, carry, and deliver the number 3 receiver to the safety, and the nickel playing the quarter flat will do the same thing with the number 2 receiver. Either way, if Travis Kelce is aligned as a number 2 or number 3 receiver, multiple defenders are now leveraging Kelce throughout his route, even if all 3 receivers run vertical. But that doesn't happen often, so if one of the receivers on the trip side runs an underneath route, now the defender responsible for covering that man vertically is free to help bracket Kelce. You could legitimately have 3 to 4 defenders leveraging Kelce based on the route combinations. And that's the key to slowing down Travis Kelce. The answer isn't just put Coop on him, but the key to slowing down Kelce or any top weapon is to play as a unit and have the defense leverage that star player with inside help, outside help, and help over the top. That's how this Eagles defense slowed down the Jamar Chases, the CD Lambs, and the Terry McLaurins of the world. That's a big factor to how they became the top pass defense in the NFL. Now, it can be done by playing man coverage and straight up double teaming someone, and the Eagles will likely double Travis Kelce in the red zone or on a third down at some point. But I do expect variations of cover 1 where they use middle of the field defenders in the deep and intermediate areas of the field to provide inside leverage while playing man coverage with outside leverage. But the Chiefs love when you play cover 1, as they will use a variety of different rub routes and crossing routes to pick defenders off. Use cover 1 as a changeup, but not as a base game plan. The Bills learned that the hard way. Using leverage through route distribution and coverage is the way. The same holds true in 2x2 formations. I'd expect the Eagles to use a good amount of cover 3 match when the Chiefs are in 2x2. This allows the seam flat defender to play with outside leverage, knowing he has inside help from the hook defenders. I would also expect to see a couple reps of cover 6 against 2x2 sets as well, as that would allow the will linebacker to play Kelce with inside leverage, knowing he has outside leverage from the corner playing in the flat. The last thing to point out about this game plan, and it's a very important point, is that Quinyon Mitchell and Darius Slay will be put on an island in this game. The Eagles are going to try to pack the middle of the field to take away the Chiefs' top weapon. 79% of Travis Kelce's targets this season have come between the numbers. That is going to put stress on Mitchell and Slay to hold up outside against the likes of DeAndre Hopkins, Hollywood Brown, and Xavier Worthy. We didn't even talk about him in this episode, but Xavier Worthy might be the X factor in this game. And having said all of that, Fangio's game plan might not even work because Mahomes is Mahomes, and he just does Mahomes stuff to get out of trouble. We'll talk more about Worthy and Mahomes in other episodes as we get closer to the big game. But if you want to slow down this Chiefs offense, you have to find ways to get Mahomes to hold on to the ball.